I'm Alex Bell, getting to the point. Now imagine having to sell everything you own because of your race. That was the reality for the Tokuno family when their parents were actually forced into internment camps during World War II. The Tokunos tell Van 2 how friendship during those turbulent times actually kept their family roots intact for some 80 years later.
It's a milestone.
My name is Lucille
Fit for a special celebration.
Tokuno. I just turned 100.
An outpouring of love for Lucille Harumi Tokuno, surrounded by generations of family.
To have my family and friends.
She says her secret to longevity is holding on to hope.
For me, looking forward to each day.
Born and raised in Sacramento, Tokuno was a typical American girl who enjoyed dressing up with her sisters, jumping on trends like denim jeans for women. Lady Levi's were released in 1934, 5 years before World War II. She wore them stylishly in this photo with her father, Kazu Tanaka, a first-generation Japanese immigrant who was ineligible for citizenship, known as Issei. Tokuno is second-generation Japanese, known as Nisei, American-born and a U.S. citizen. Yet her and her father's lives changed in an instant.
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor,
following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order to relocate tens of thousands of Japanese families to concentration camps. California defined anyone with at least 1/16th Japanese blood as a potential Japanese loyalist who should be interned. Tokuno's son, Dean Tokuno, says he only learned of this chapter in American history as a teen, an experience his mother lived through but never spoke of.
When the war came about, Japanese Americans were not allowed to take anything more than they could carry, and that was it.
Tokuno's family was sent hundreds of miles north,
Then Tule Lake.
the only place she called home. Her father forced to sell their family restaurant in Old Sacramento.
They had nobody to give the land to or hold it for them. So as a consequence, they lost it. Heartbreaking, actually, but that's what happened.
But a silver lining. Tule Lake is also where a young Lucille met Dean's father, Ted Tokuno.
She was smitten. He didn't know, but he was going to marry her.
Ted Tokuno, born in Palermo, California, was also Nisei.
Well, he was considered a dangerous Japanese.
Dangerous because he was licensed to carry out demolitions and to fly planes as a farm worker.
He was scrutinized very heavily, and that had an effect on him.
Like Lucille's father, Ted's father also had to sell off property, including a 20-acre ranchette in the southwest portion of Yuba City, just beyond the Yuba Buttes.
My grandfather was a first-generation Japanese, he could barely speak English.
But Dean says a friend bought the ranchette for $1 with the promise of selling the land back.
And yet he hands the keys to his everything he owned to this Caucasian man who says, I'll take care of it for you. I'll give it back to you for $1 when you get back.
The promise was kept.
This piece of property that we're on right now is the piece of property that my grandfather Bunda Tokuno bought from my dad.
Sutter County records show a widow, Laura B. Davis, sold the farm back to Ted and Lucille Tokuno in 1946. At the time, Japanese faces were that of the enemy. The American Institute of Public Opinion found only 1% of Americans opposed the internment of Japanese non-citizens.
My grandfather chose the right friend, and it's remarkable. It's about honor. That's what it comes down to.
Japanese Americans were given $20,000 in restitution and an apology letter.
My father still hung on to that. One of his most prized possessions. He said, what I've needed since the end of the war was this letter.
Generations of Tokunos have since made memories on the farm, and Lucille says her husband's contributions are cherished.
He loved the farm. Been here oh, over 50 years, and I still love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Looking back at her life,
Oh my goodness. Oh, I didn't know he had that.
Lucille says her love of dance carried her through the handful of years at Tule Lake.
I taught dancing. I had a little studio where I had many young people.
And her life with many favorite songs to dance to, from the 1950 Doors Day classic.
We will raise a family, a boy for you, a little girl for me.
It's a blessing for me.
She says her life isn't defined by war, but of love.
I think my greatest achievement is having a family and seeing them grow and enjoying life. That's what it's all about.
Oh my goodness. And that was her 100th birthday.
Yeah, that was.
So cute, so cute. And something that really stuck with me is that, she said that her life isn't defined by war, but love. I love that she said that.
Definitely. And for that time in American history, it's full of painful memories. So you'll find with older Japanese Americans, they really hesitate to talk about it. And that really was the case for Lucille Tokuno as well. So we were at her 100th birthday and we talked about Tule Lake very briefly, but it is her 100th birthday and she spent just a handful of years at Tule Lake. So she really wanted to talk about what she loved, and that is, of course, dance and her family and friends.
Yeah, and they looked like they were having a good time too. But I did want to ask you, what about those people that did not get their properties back? Because that's not really the norm, is it?
Yeah, so, the Tokunos say that they were the lucky ones to have had this friend keep that promise at a time when Americans really thought that was the right thing to do, to intern Japanese American citizens. So they say they really were the lucky ones. Not everyone was fortunate. They really had to rebuild from scratch.
And what about the property that they mentioned, that they had in downtown Sacramento? Any plans of trying to get that back?
I did ask Dean that question if he ever considered, and he said he did think about this, but he came to the conclusion that, it has been probably 2 generations out, so he didn't want to, again, take property from another family that has had it for that long. But he also acknowledges that, his mother's family losing that property was not right either.
Well, thank you so much for sharing their story. We appreciate it. And again, if there's something that you want us to get to the point to, all you have to do is just email us at tothepoint@abc10.com.